Hey, I'd like to introduce someone whose voice you've heard on the show before, and that is Chad. And we have a fantastic little YouTube raffle for you. Chad, what's it all about?
Yes, we have an exciting opportunity coming up for you to be able to win a free ticket to meet the Masters coming up in March, or a $500 travel allowance. Here's what you need to do to be able to win one of those things. We will be selecting a winner on March 4th when the contest ends. And all you have to do is go to the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Jason Hartman Real Estate. Subscribe if you haven't already. Then pick any video to watch. There's a variety of categories, everything about real estate investing, from finding the right markets, analyzing real estate deals, the economics of real estate investing, property management, financing. There's a whole wide range of videos that you can choose from, and choose one that you think would be interesting to you, watch it, and then go to the comments section and comment just a quick one-sentence comment on something that you learned from that video. And make sure to include the hashtag JHLive in the comment, and that will enter you into this raffle.
Okay, so that's real easy. You just go to youtube.com/Jason Hartman Real Estate, subscribe to the channel, and then watch any video you like, and make a comment below the video of one thing you learned, include the hashtag JHLive, and that will enter you in the raffle to win a free ticket to meet the Masters or a $500 travel allowance. This ends on March 4th, so be sure to get it done before March 4th. We look forward to seeing you at Meet the Masters. Thanks for joining us, Chad.
Thanks.
This show is produced by the Hartman Media Company. For more information and links to all our great podcasts, visit hartmanmedia.com.
Speakers, publishers, consultants, coaches, and info marketers unite. The Speaking of Wealth Show is your roadmap to success and significance. Learn the latest tools, technologies, and tactics to get more bookings, sell more products, and attract more clients. If you're looking to increase your direct response sales, create a big-time personal brand, and become the go-to guru, the Speaking of Wealth Show is for you. Here's your host, Jason Hartman.
It's my pleasure to welcome Beerud Sheth to the show. He is founder of Elance, which is now Upwork, and they just had an IPO fairly recently, maybe 2 months ago, I want to say. He's also founder of a new company, founder and CEO of Gupshup, which means chit chat, and it is the world's leading messaging and bot platform. Beerud, welcome. How are you?
Thanks, Jason, for having me. I'm great. How are you?
It's good to have you here, and you're coming to us today from Silicon Valley. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, it's sunny today. It was a little rainy for the last few days. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, hey, congratulations on your IPO. I'm sure you did very well with that. And it's always exciting to see companies that I know well go public and kind of take the next step. How long ago did you start Elance?
So Elance, I founded Elance about 20 years ago. This was in late 98 in New York City, actually. And, it's been a long journey. You're right. Many companies, as you know, startups have a high sort of infant mortality, right? So few startups survive for a few years and then thrive and, succeed. So it has been a long and hard journey for us, 20 years.
Right.
But finally, it was good to get to this point. So
I had no idea it was that old. Where did Odesk come into the picture? Elance bought Odesk, right?
I think both companies were roughly the same size, so they merged. But just to give you some quick chronology, Elance started in late 98, and we essentially pioneered what we now call the gig economy, right? And then somewhere along the way, Odesk started in 2004, so a few years later. I think Elance was more focused on fixed projects, fixed price projects, so to speak. Odesk was more focused on hourly work. And about in 2014, so about 16 years after Elance was founded and 10 years after Odesk, the two companies merged and rebranded to Upwork, and which finally did an IPO in 2018. It was in October, actually.
Yeah, fantastic. And I mean, these are huge platforms you're talking about, whether it be Elance, Odesk, or Upwork, now all one. How many freelancers are on the platform?
Upwork enables close to $2 billion worth of transactions. And I think it's in the millions now. Quite a few freelancers. Though I think the model keeps changing a little bit. There are, just to make sure the work is balanced. I think we have a few 100,000 freelancers that are certified, on the system, because it just keeps a good balance. You only want to have freelancers that get enough work. You don't want them sort of just being there but not getting work and so on.
What does certified mean?
So I think based on feedback, based on reputation, based on some skills, verification, and so on, there's a lot of different things going on, right? So I'm not sort of directly and operationally involved with the company anymore. I was on the board for about 16 years till the merger.
Sure.
And of late, obviously I've been running another company, and it's a public company now, so there's a lot of information out there.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think Upwork provides livelihood and economic opportunity to millions of freelancers worldwide. I think it's in 100 plus countries. It's just the impact is mind-boggling. I think we started, we were very ambitious, had an idea, but it's really gratifying to see it play out and actually have the impact we thought it would.
Oh, most definitely. We've recommended that our real estate investor clients hire off of platforms like Upwork, and there are others out there, we have to say that, of course, to, have people help them manage their real estate portfolios and do bookkeeping work for them. And, the commitment is relatively low, isn't it? Where you can hire someone just freelance for a few hours a week, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think that was the whole idea, the vision of the gig economy, which is, there are people who need things to be done. And then there are people who have additional time, spare time. They may have the skills, but often don't have the opportunity or have the bandwidth to take on more work. So as a platform, Upwork connects people who need to get things done with people who have this ability. And, it's a low it's a low entry bar. You can hire somebody for an hour or for months. It could be for a small sort of fixed price project, and because people are remote, you may not be able to monitor hours. You can just set a fixed price. Or if it is sort of software development like work, then there are monitoring tools so that you can even track the number of hours worked and so on. So there's many different models to do this. But yeah, the key is it really simplifies life, right? Sort of as people or as businesses, it requires us to think, okay, what is our core competency? What should we focus on and outsource the rest?
Yeah, it definitely does. Do you want to talk more about your journey, your entrepreneurial journey there just for a moment? Maybe some of the big difficulties and challenges you overcame, or what was your secret sauce? And then let's talk about your new company as well.
Sure. So certainly our journey with Elance was long and challenging. It was complicated, by the dot-com bust of 2001 and also the financial crisis of 2008, right? So it sort of survived two financial meltdowns, outlasted a lot of competition. There were business model changes. There were, also in the early days, we had to evangelize this whole concept of remote work. How do you work with somebody through the internet that you've never met, right? Now, today, we take it for granted, but at that time, it required building a lot of trust, and we had to have processes like escrow and, verification and reputation building and feedback. So a lot of iteration and innovation went into developing and refining these models. Also, what kind of categories, right? Is it software and graphic design worked, but let's say legal and accounting didn't work as well, and so on. So I think lots of challenges. I think also the basic execution, right? Hiring in Silicon Valley is always a challenge. And then as the financial meltdowns happened, we had to pivot, as we call it, or shift course. As we do that, you have to sort of manage teams, sometimes, let go of people, which can always be hard at a personal level, and so on. Also, what kind of customers to focus on, real small businesses, larger enterprises. In fact, Elance did focus for a little bit on larger enterprises as well, but then we sort of came back to the small and mid-market, which has continued to grow.
Share with us some stats if you can, if you know them. I know you're not that active in the company directly anymore, but in the operations. But what is the typical client, I guess that, and then what is the typical freelancer in terms of, how much they earn, how much they spend, or anything like that? You did the big market for a while, and I guess it's not as focused on that. There was larger employers that needed to staff up quickly and probably expand and contract a lot, I would assume. I could definitely see that in the accounting world at tax time every year, and so forth. Share with us any kind of information on that, if you would.
The early days, the core foundation was actually, small and mid-sized businesses. And I'm speaking more about Elance, right? So the average project size would be about $500 to $1,000. It would be some website development, some software program to be written, oftentimes, logo development or marketing and branding kit development, projects like that. Mm-hmm. But more recently, now, and especially after the merger, Upwork has scaled up a lot, right? So in fact, we've kind of gone back, Upwork has gone back to enterprises. There's some really large companies using it on a massive scale. Some really large, let's say, consumer branded goods companies. They have a lot of marketing work all over the world and so on. And they even have their own they create their private marketplace, if you will. They have their pre-certified freelancers and service providers and so on. So I think, Upwork has grown a lot from the early Elance days. And as far as freelancers are concerned, it varies, but on the high end, I know freelancers had made, several $100,000 to even millions of dollars. I've personally met companies that say, hey, we were just 2 or 3 people in the Philippines or in India, and now there's 100 people. It's become, a big business.
Are those the freelancers, the 100 people, the growth, the Philippines you're talking about?
Exactly, yeah, okay. Right? So the freelancers have grown. And I think one of the most sort of gratifying moments for me was, I remember meeting a senior government official, probably a minister from the Philippines government, saying, thank you for founding Elance and, Upwork and so on, because Philippines is like 3,000 islands. It's hard to build factories and so on. So what they do is give people some training and skills, and then give them connectivity and put them on Elance or Upwork. Mm-hmm. There's lots and lots of people. It brings in, I think, nearly $250 million in foreign exchange at that time.
Wow. Amazing. That's really amazing how a platform can impact the world like that. So congratulations on your success. Tell us about your newer venture. I don't want to say new because I don't think it's totally new, but what is your other venture?
Yeah, so over the last few years, I founded a company called Gupshup. It's a Hindi word that means chit-chat, right? And it's kind of appropriate for a messaging company. We provide an enterprise platform for businesses to send large volumes of messages to their customers. So for example, when you shop at Amazon, you probably get a text message saying your package is arriving tomorrow or day after, right? Mm-hmm. And in other parts of the world, you have banks that'll send you a message every time you swipe your credit card, or every time you book a flight or a hotel or a taxi. You get these confirmation messages, delivery notification, flight status updates, and so on. So globally, there are about 2 trillion messages sent every year mm-hmm. to literally every mobile user. Mm-hmm. We make it easy. We are sort of that intermediary, a platform that businesses can connect to, and we deliver these messages, right? And it takes a lot of technology because the messages have to go quickly, they have to go reliably, and there are new messaging channels emerging as well, right? So it's no longer just like plain text or SMS messaging, right. But it can also go through Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp or Skype or Telegram and so on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I can see how they would need your help to integrate with all those other platforms for sure, because, that's complicated, I'm sure. But just to send text messages, is it just the sheer volume? Like a company can't do that in-house because it takes so much bandwidth? Text messages like hardly any data at all. But I guess, when you're sending millions of them, it's a whole different scale, right?
That's right. And there's a lot of subtlety around, there's different operators, mobile operators, and each of them have different connectivity requirements. And stuff keeps changing in the network, right? Sometimes if one part of the network goes down, then you do reroute it to a different network. Mm-hmm. And things like that. So there is complexity. Also, tracking user profiles, user preferences. If a user says unsubscribe, then you cannot send them anymore.
Right.
So there's a lot of value add that we bring in. And then the more exciting thing is, historically, a lot of this messaging has been essentially one-way communication, which says, let's say your package is arriving tomorrow. But the next step forward is to convert that into a two-way interaction, right? What if the user could reply to that message saying, hey, can you reschedule to the day after because I'm out tomorrow, right?
Yeah,
or if you get a notification saying your flight is delayed, well, can you reschedule the flight or can you book it, right?
That gets a lot more complicated. No question.
Exactly. So to enable this two-way interaction then requires you to, as humans, we all communicate and do two-way messaging, but for businesses, they would be inundated with millions of messages, right, from each of their customers. So then they have to automate those interactions, which means now they have to enable AI-enabled chatbots, as they're called, which are just automatic software programs that can behave like a customer support agent, that can do all the work, but can do it automatically, do it rapidly, and so on. So that's creating a whole new wave of innovation. And your listeners may be more familiar with voice bots like, let's say, Amazon Alexa or Google Assistant.
Right.
They are getting increasingly popular, but it's kind of the same thing except on chat. So I think we are very rapidly heading into a world of what's called conversational interfaces, right? So instead of clicking on buttons on tabs and screens, you would now just chat with a computer. Right. So instead of people having to behave like computers, you're going to have computers behaving like people, where you can have a natural conversation and get things done. So it's not just, play this song or what's the recipe, but it's also, what's my bank balance? Can you transfer this money? And what's the news today? And so on. Everything is just a conversation.
Sure. Yeah. Good. Well, so where do you see this going? I mean, like what is the future of this kind of technology? What's it going to look like in 5 or 10 years?
I think this is a sort of fundamental transformation of the computer-human interface. If I go back about 30, 40 years, every decade or so, the interface changes, right? So in the mid-'80s, it was primarily the desktop. And then in the mid-'90s, it became the web, right? You visited different websites using a browser. And then the mid-2000s, it then moved to smartphones and apps, right? Mobile apps that you download to your device and do things. And now it's all moving to these conversational interactions. So if I look at it, 5, 10 years out, these software agents are going to be far more intelligent, far more personalized, with a lot of natural conversational capability. So really getting things done, I mean, it's really just being surrounded by lots and lots of assistants, butlers, guides, mentors, your coworker, would be a bot, and so on, right? So they're going to pervade our lives in very interesting ways. In a way, I think it's good. They can automate a lot of grunt work that many of us have to do.
Sure.
It sort of frees us up to do more things, higher order things, or maybe even personal things that we may not have enough time for.
Right. The other area that at least the conversational, the voice conversational technology is very helpful for is, disabled people. My aunt has multiple sclerosis, and for her to be able to talk to a device rather than it's very difficult for her to type on it. That's just got to be incredibly helpful for someone in her position.
Exactly. I think the point is the moment computers become more natural, intuitive, just like interacting with humans, the more usable it is for people, right? So whether they are physically challenged or could be young kids these days, right? They may not be able to use a computer, but they can certainly talk to Alexa. Anybody, I think it really provides greater access to anybody to a richer set of services.
Sure. And that's what it's all about. The more people you can connect, the more people are thinking and talking. And I know it's a bit of a leap, but I think that's really bodes well for world peace. When you have relationships with people all over the planet, you're a lot less likely to see wars break out because these people know each other, right? They have a connection. And
exactly.
So that's a great thing too. I'm not sure why I have this question, or if it's from my people or yours, but there are some questions here I'm looking at before we wrap up about things like, online reputation management, cyberbullying, and how bots would be involved in that. I'm not sure if you have anything to say about that, but I thought I'd ask the question.
I think it's kind of interesting where just like bots can automate a lot of work, I guess they can police behavior as well. I mean, there's certain tweets that can get aggressive and such. Or, in fact, in many conversational chatbot interactions, we found people, oftentimes people will joke, sometimes they get abusive as well. These bots are sort of trained or programmed to say, well, I don't respond to language like that.
I know I do that with Alexa sometimes. I sort of abuse her or ask her weird questions just to test her.
That's right.
And the answers are pretty funny.
And in fact, even for little kids, apparently that thing they can order anyone around. Alexa will say, well, ask me nicely.
Yeah. It'll even help raise your kids and teach them manners, right?
I guess, exactly, right? Exactly. I mean, things like that, that you can program and monitor and watch for. I think, certainly online abuse, because people think they have this certain level of anonymity. People tend to be far more aggressive than they would be in person.
Yeah, that's one of the big downfalls of the online era. I remember before 1994, how much more courteous people were than they are today. I mean, it's like this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde mentality. People get behind a keyboard and like, would you really act that way if you were in person with someone or even on the phone with them? That's one of the ugly sides. It really is, and the chance for misunderstanding is so much greater, mostly if people will actually just have a conversation, they'll, more often than not work out their differences.
Right. Exactly. I mean, I think there's, the amount of sort of racial and sexual abuse online is just greater in some ways because people think, they can get away with impunity.
Yeah.
So it'd be good to have some, at least some sort of pushback on that in a small way.
Right. So if the bot can be there and referee, that can help, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, good stuff. What else do you want to say as we wrap it up, just to tell people about the future or your plans or your companies or anything, maybe any questions I didn't ask you?
I mean, I'm, as an entrepreneur, you're always excited about, what's coming next because, you can never rest on your past laurels, whatever you've done for me lately kind of thing, right? Sure. So really, that's what gets me up every day. And I think the world that we talked about, sort of a conversational, intelligent, AI-enabled future. Yes, there are a lot of challenges. There may be automation, jobs and industries will get disrupted. And I think we need to be careful and deliberate about some of the choices around AI that we make. But at the same time, I think it can relieve humans of a lot of drudgery and repetitive work, automate some common things, and free us up either to do better things professionally and personally, maybe more family time, maybe more productive that we don't need to, and so on. So I think it's a world that's exciting and we're busy enabling and building some of these tools. So very excited about that.
Yep, very good. Give out whatever website or Twitter handle or whatever you'd like to share with our audience so they can find your work. And let's wrap it up.
My name is Beerud, Beerud. So that's my Twitter handle as well. Our company website, of course, Upwork is at upwork.com and Gupshup is at gupshup.io. So GUPSHUP.io.
I was going to ask you to spell that one just in case, and that means chit chat, as you mentioned before. Beerud, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Jason, for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.